Okay. So the reading that we will discuss today, and I've already posted this on Learning Suite, a version of this, is it's actually an article that I wrote with a good friend of mine, Richard Chase. And we wrote this article and submitted it for publication. It's been basically accepted, but it has not come out in print yet. And so your assignment, if you choose to do this as your extra assignment, is to read the article and to write up a 100 to 200 word synopsis of the article, and something that would be compelling, something that some manager would read and say, wow, that looks like a great article. I'd love to read that. Does that make sense? That's kind of your assignment. If you want to do that, it's completely optional, but it counts as a substitute for some other assignment. So the title of the paper that we wrote is Optimizing Customer Involvement. That wasn't the original title. The original title was actually, oops, is it working? The original title was How Close Do You Want to Be to Your Customers? So that's now kind of the subtitle of that. I actually took that title off because there was some confusion about what that meant. How close do you want to be to your customers? I think some people think it has something to do with sexual harassment or something like that, which it is not. You know, that's the human resources people. Let them be the experts in managing that. So what we're going to talk about is customer involvement and how we optimize that. All right, so there are 4 fundamental questions of business. Well, there's more than that, but I kind of think of 4 that are kind of the really basics of business. What do you think they would be? The most fundamental elements of business. Nate?
Are we profitable?
Okay, are we profitable? How do you get there? I mean, are we profitable is a pretty, you can tell if you are or not.
Okay.
The harder question would be, how do you get there? So how do you get there?
By creating value that's needed by your customers, or one, I guess.
Okay, so what is our value proposition? I like that. So what is our value proposition? Is it valued by customers? And next week, we're going to talk about value to a very great degree. It's kind of our topic for next week. Other thoughts, Jacob?
Who are our customers?
Who are our customers? Who are we trying to serve? And maybe what their needs are. In fact, that's the first one I actually have here. Who is the customer? What is the need? What is the pain point? What's the desired outcome? What are we trying to accomplish? What offering, to Nate's point, what is it we do? What do we offer to our customers? They call that the product. How will that offering be produced? So this is another one, especially for those of you that are supply chain students. This is a very important issue, which is, how are we going to get that? We have an offering, but how do we make the thing? Okay. And then another one I think that's very foundational is, how will it be proffered? Meaning, how do we get it out to the customers? So again, major supply chain implications there, but also marketing implications. Like, how do we communicate this to customers? How do we distribute it to customers? Does that make sense? All right. Any questions about that? Okay, so today, what we're going to talk about primarily is these 2 here. The product and production. Okay. Now, the product and production, they're closely related, but they're fundamentally different. So I'm going to contrast this a little bit here. So products and production. So products, that's the offerings, things like here, pizza. Now, I apologize. I realize it's like 12:47 right now, and some of you may not have had lunch. Did anybody miss lunch? I feel really bad. Oh man. Okay. I have half of a honey sandwich in my pocket of my jacket, if you want. I ate it on my way into work today. I ate half of it on my way into work today. But pizza is a product. But pizza also comes from a production process. So that's the production idea. How are they made? How is pizza made? Does anybody know how pizza is made? Do any of you make your own pizzas?
No.
You did?
Yeah.
How did it turn out?
There are some places that are really good pizza places.
Yeah.
So I would rather go there for like really good pizza rather than homemade average pizza.
Okay, yeah. See, that's the challenge. We're going to come back to this as we talk both today as well as in the next few weeks. Is the challenge is which production process can produce the better pizza? you or the pizza restaurant. And the challenge is at some pizza restaurants like this, you know, it's like they produce these amazing pizzas. Jared?
I would rather do mine sometimes
Why?
because I can put whatever I want on it.
Okay, so you're like me, you like it how you want it, and they can't do it quite the same. So in fact, we'll come back to this about pizza because I'll show some examples in a few minutes. But for my pizzas, I actually like it my own way. So did I tell you that I bought a pizza oven this past year? So it's one of these little, it runs on propane, it's about on my deck, and it's like a little curved oven, and it gets up to 850 degrees. So when you start the thing, it gets hotter than heck. You have this little laser thermometer that you shoot into it, and it says, okay, 850 degrees, let's start cooking some pizzas here. And my wife makes dough from scratch. And also she makes sauce from scratch. We found out there's a point where it's like, you're too hungry, you don't want to take all the time. So now we use bottled sauce, but we still use homemade dough that she'll make from scratch. And I love pineapple on my pizzas, but it's too moist. Pineapple is, you know, it makes your pizza soggy. So I take my pineapple, a fresh pineapple, I peel it with my peeler, and then I slice it with my slicing machine, and then I lay it out on a cookie sheet and put it in the oven under low broil for like half an hour to take some of the moisture out. And so you wind up with these sweet little pineapple pieces that are not hard, they're still soft, and then you put those on your pizza, and then pepperoni. And then I also do finely sliced tomatoes. I like spreading around on it. And then diced olives that I do, you know, dice, things like that. You know what I'm talking about here? Now, granted, it's a lot of work, but my pizzas are to die for. I mean, they are amazing. And it's just like, I mean, they're just exactly, and I don't do it on my family. When we have pizza night, everybody has their own bolo dough. In fact, we have different kinds of bolo dough. We have garlic and herb, we have whole wheat. We have, you know, different, you can use which dough you want to use. And then everybody decides how much sauce they want. Everybody just makes their own pizza. And then after they make it, they say, hey, you know, we hope they say this, I'm sharing. Everybody wants some of my pizza. And then they might share some of their pizza. It's like, no, that doesn't look very good or whatever. But yeah, you kind of experiment. So that's a different, so you see the difference there. It's still pizza, but it's a much more customer engaged process. Okay, so we could have pizza made in a restaurant in their kitchen, and there's some process they go through. We talked about that a little bit last week in our chapter 3 assignment. Okay, now we also have this idea of strategy. So we have these decisions about product positioning is how does our product compare to competing products? That's kind of positioning, you know? So for example, DiGiorno makes pizza and Costco makes pizza. They're both pizza, but they're different pizza, right? Have any of you had DiGiorno or some other frozen pizza? Okay, yeah. If any of you had Costco pizza? Whoa, a lot of, which is better, DiGiorno or Costco? Is it?
Yeah,
Always? Is it better?
Yes.
What if you're hungry and it's like 2 a.m. and you're just like, oh man, I have got to get some pizza. Which is better?
Whatever we can get the fastest, probably.
Well, Costco doesn't open till 9 in the morning. DiGiorno is in your freezer. It's been sitting there for like 2 years. It's just as good after 2 years, you know, or just as bad. I don't know which it is, but. So there might be positioning about, okay, maybe DiGiorno is not trying to compete with Costco. See, Costco pizza, you have to get parking for that. DiGiorno, you just have to walk to their freezer and pull it out, you know. So anyway, some things to think about. We'll talk more about this positioning ideas. Now, that's product positioning. We also have process, production positioning. And that's kind of this paper that we're talking about today. That's kind of the contribution to this paper, is to talk about production positioning and how we fit production vis-a-vis other types of production. So for example, how does it compare? You can have pizza made on an assembly line. See, that's an assembly line. This is mass production. Super fast. Okay, each pizza is made in, you know, the cycle time for an assembly line like this might be something like 10 seconds. Every 10 seconds, a pizza is made. Isn't that amazing to think about? Whereas over here, we also have an assembly line, but it's a slow assembly line. This assembly line, each pizza might take 5 minutes to make, you know, much slower. but it's a different kind of pizza. But the difference is how the production process is designed. The pizzas can look very similar to one another, which they actually kind of do here, but the production process varies dramatically. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions about that? All right, production, making things. So what kind of things can you make? Give me an example. Food. Okay, what else? This is not a hard question.
Cars, bicycles, cell phones.
Okay, yeah, cars, by something else. Everybody has to tell me one. Come on. Skis, okay. Wait, clothes has been called. Picked. You got to pick a different one.
Eyeglasses.
Eyeglasses, Jessica. Chocolate. Ooh, I like it. Adam.
TVs.
TVs.
Houses.
Houses. Madeline.
Snowman.
Okay, I like it. Do they mass produce them? They do at Disney,
Yeah.
like in the movies, you know? Okay, Tiffany,
Backpacks.
I like it. Rena? Yep, good. Tiffany?
Food and clothes.
Oh, yeah, you already got that, so you're ahead of the game. Caitlin? Makeup. Awesome. All right, nobody said cars. Did you say that? You said a bunch of things. All right, so you can make cars, you can make electronics. You know, all these electronic devices we have are made somewhere. It's pretty amazing. Actually, what was I looking at? I was looking at something recently I had to take apart. And it was like, it blew my mind how tiny it was, you know? Like, whoa, how do they do that? You can make movies. What do they call it when they make a movie? What is the process of making a movie called? Yeah, it's kind of production, isn't it? Isn't that interesting to think about? So we call this production and we call this production. They're kind of similar in the sense it's a sequence of steps, some resources that you're kind of working with and integrating. You have human resources, you have, you know, issues about quality and things like that. So you have production of a movie. You can produce, this is a picture of In-N-Out Burger. Have any of you ever been to In-N-Out Burger? I love going to In-N-Out Burger. I hate their food. Food is like, no, I mean, think about it. They have this one called is it the animal style?
Almost all Fridays.
That should not be called animal style. It should be called trans fat style. Okay? That's what it is. Come on, let's be honest here. But their production process brings a tear to my eye. You know, it's like, oh, it's beautiful here. I mean, it just moves. Everybody's busy. They avoid the bottlenecks, you know, they keep everything flowing well, fresh tomatoes and all that kind of stuff like that. What's this? You can produce bank transactions, you know, that's production. You know, working in a bank, they are producing transactions. They are producing, they're making, well, you say that, you know, they make change. You know, you say, oh, can you make change? You're making something. You're taking a $100 bill and turn it into a bunch of $10 bills or something like that. What's this? What are they making here? Travel. Yeah, they're making transportation. Okay. They're making videos too, which is weird. In fact, I don't know what the heck this picture is. Yeah, I am very curious what's on this side of things, you know, that they're doing. I wish I had whatever they're taking pictures of here, because whatever it is, these people are way too happy here in this. Okay, what are they making here? Education. Yeah, okay. We're making education in somehow. So see, this is production here. We're kind of in a production process here. Now, the thing I want to point out is that there's a lot of kinds of production, but there are ways they vary. And that's what this paper is about. This paper is about the ways that production can vary. And the idea of optimal means where is the best place to be? So as we look at these different alternatives here, one thing we see is these have different degrees of customer involvement. There are some, like auto production or electronic device production, that have very low customer involvement. The customer's way down the supply chain. We have others, such as this airline thing or the education, that have very high customer involvement. Okay, we have pretty much, Madeline, in this class, we have pretty high customer involvement, don't we? I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, I hope it is. I hope it's always something that's like, we're interacting. It's not just one way.
One-on-one, it seems like.
Very one-on-one, isn't it? And do you like one-on-one, or would you rather say, no, don't do one-on-one with me?
I think one-on-one is good.
I hope it is good, because it's actually a great gift that we have by co-producing. The fact that we're here together is the fact that we can have these types of interactions, which helps increase the depth and richness of the education process. All right, so I'm going to take what we just looked at there and see if we can organize it into what we're going to call a model. Now, a model is kind of a representation of reality, but it helps us think about things in kind of a systematic way. Okay, so in this model, there's a spectrum or a continuum of types of production. At one extreme, we have what we're going to call standardized production. Standardized meaning it's produced the same every time. Then we have one called customized production. That's different because there it's not produced the same every time. It's produced different based on individual customer needs and requirements and so forth. We have another one, which is synchronous co-production. Synchronous co-production is, as we've talked about in class before, it's synchronous, but it involves the customer and the provider working together, co-producing in a particular offering. We have self-service production, and that's where self-service, we kind of think of the customer taking some responsibility. Okay, what's an example of self-service? Somebody give me an example. Was that Yogurtland? Yeah, self-service Yogurtland. You go in, they might give you the little cup, but in the olden days before the pandemic, you used to go get your own cup, and then you get the cup in, and then you're just basically, you're the boss there. You know, you put whatever you want in, recognizing that everything you put in is going to cost you something eventually. And so I don't know if you're like me, but it's the ratio. It's like, oh, I really like those, but they're so heavy, you know? But if you get these light things, like I hate marshmallows, you know, they're nasty. It's like, why waste your time? But they're like almost free because they don't weigh anything, you know? It's like, okay, I'm just gonna load this thing up with marshmallows. It's like, no, there's a balance here. But the idea though is that you are in control there. And finally, even further down this spectrum is DIY. And what does DIY stand for?
Do it yourself.
Yeah, do it yourself. So do it yourself production, where as the customer, you have the full responsibility yourself. So there's this continuum here. So let me take you through some examples of this. One offering, many production options. So here, by the way, that's the kind of pizza we cook in my pizza oven. I mean, I kid you not, it's like works of art. One of my sons used to work for one of the big pizza places. And so he makes beautiful pizzas, but I make beautiful. Mine are not as artistic as his are, but they are super tasty because of the, you know, putting those combination things on. All right, so let's talk about pizza. So at one extreme, we can have standardized production. We've already kind of seen that. That would be something like the factory. And look at this. Every pizza looks almost like every other pizza. It's kind of standardized. High productivity here, you know, tremendous throughput. We can have customized production. Have any of you ever done the Malawi's pizza case in a class? Well, that is actually Kent from the case, the guy that founded the company. And at Malawi's, that's how they did it. Remember in that case, in Malawi's Pizza Catering, every pizza that you're making for your customer potentially could be different because it's based on whatever the customer requests. We could have synchronous co-production. That's that example I showed you previously where you actually interact with the people. Now, do we have any of these in Utah County?
Yes.
Well, what is it? What's one that we have now?
Blaze.
Blaze? Okay, they used to have in the mall, it was like Pizza Factory or something like that. And Pizza Rev is another one that's around. Yeah, what's that, Jared?
Well, how does customized versus synchronous happen here? Because it looks like they're both, to me, synchronous, because you're telling number two, like, I want XYZ, but you're also telling number three.
Okay. Whoa, good question. So the question is maybe how do these vary here? How do they differ?
To me, they seem similar.
Okay, where is the customer in this picture here?
In the glass.
Yeah, the customer is right there in the process. And the person is waiting for the instructions from the customer. Where's the customer in this process here?
Probably getting a drink already or
Yeah.
sitting down or something.
Right. So the customer is actually represented by an order, which you can't see the sheet, but they might have a little sheet that says, or a screen that says, oh, here's what the order is. So here, the customer is represented basically through a surrogate means, which is an order. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Excellent question. Excellent question. Any other questions on this? All right. The next one is self-serve production. Now, actually, this picture I have here, I was hoping to actually see this because I was in Italy last month and I did not see one of these. This is actually made in Italy, it says, Let's Pizza. Have any of you seen one of these pizza vending machines? Okay, so here's what supposedly happens with these. I have to find one of these things to try it out. But supposedly what happens is you come over here and push some buttons and select what you want with your pizza. So there's some options here and whatever. And then you pay, I think you pay first, and then it actually puts the pizza, it makes it inside the machine by robotics. And then it puts in this little cool little brick oven and you can actually watch your pizza in there being cooked, apparently. And then it comes out here in 2.5 minutes. And it's a fresh pizza made how you want it. Isn't that amazing to think about? Now, when you have an oven at 850 degrees, which is what mine does, you cook a pizza in about a minute because it is so darn hot. You got to stand there and actually be spinning the thing to make sure it doesn't burn because it cooks so fast. So that's self-serve. There's no person-to-person interaction, but you're basically using their technology for this. And I think this could be an amazing thing. I mean, can you imagine having one of these here in the Tanner building? Wouldn't that be great? You just go and swipe your card and I don't know how much it would cost you, but $5 for a pizza or whatever. And it's like 2.5 minutes later, you have a fresh pizza coming out of the oven. The one thing that confuses me about this picture is these little arrows here. And that's one of the reasons why I want to try one of these machines, because the arrows suggest that the pizza goes in here, doesn't come out here. So what I want to do is get a pizza, go to the machine, stick it in here and see if money comes out here. I don't know if that would work or not. All right, so that's self-service pizza. Finally, we have DIY pizza. That's what we do at the Sampson household, is DIY pizza. We do it ourselves. We make our own dough. We used to actually grow our own tomatoes, but our sad tomato plant this year produced like 2 tomatoes and then died for some reason. And so now we outsource our tomato production, but you can buy these little kits of DIY production at Papa Murphy's. It's called the Mini Murph. Have any seen those little kits? It's like do it yourself. And it comes with these little containers and probably some instructions, and you can make your own pizza. Just follow the instructions and like that. It's kind of cool. Kind of like what would happen, I guess, if IKEA sold pizza. Does IKEA sell pizza? I don't think they do.
Target or like they sell like kids.
They sell a kit? Oh,
No kids like IKEA don't do it, do yourself.
yeah. Well, IKEA, the difference is if IKEA sold a pizza kit, it would come with the hex wrench. For some reason, everything you get from IKEA comes with a hex wrench. I'm not 100% sure why, but it's like, okay, you eat it with the hex wrench or something. Okay, so that's DIY. So look at that. We have 5 different. Now, on this side, there's provider control. In the factory, the provider has extensive control over this process. On this side, the customer has control. They're really managing the process and making all the decisions. And in between, it's interactive with increasing customer involvement. Does that make sense? All right, let's do another example. Developing fitness plans. Okay, here we are in January. You know, it's the time of year we're all trying to think, okay. And mine is cardiovascular. I thought I got to get something to do more cardiovascular exercise. And in the summertime, I bike. In the wintertime, I ski, but not as much as I bike in the summer probably. And so I need to find something that's kind of cardiovascular. Okay, so I need to develop a fitness plan. And I don't know exactly where to start for this. Well, we could do it standardized or we could do it any of these other ways. So standardized would be maybe read a book. Somebody writes a book that knows about cardiovascular exercise, writes a book, and people can buy the book and use that plan. Or you could do customized. I could actually go to my primary care physician and say, or, you know, call them up or email them and say, hey, can you get something for somebody at my age that would not kill me, that would be healthy and that would not damage my knees and stuff like that? You know, my orthopedic guy, you know, probably be somebody give me some good advice on that. Okay, synchronous co-production. I could hire a personal trainer, which I actually kind of have done. I have a neighbor that's helped me out a little bit and he gives me some pointers. He says, we'll go to the gym and he'll say, okay, do this. It's like, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, don't do that then. See, it's kind of synchronous. We co-produce and we kind of negotiate about what to do. And, you know, he'll say, here, try this. Do you want weight on it? It's like, yeah, give me some weight. It's like, no, take off the weight, you know. So, all right, we can develop self-serve. This is very common. You just go to the gym and do it yourself. So yesterday I was at the gym actually with some of our youth from my ward. And they wanted to, we're going to kind of, learn how to use some of the equipment there and exercise and stuff. And some of the kids, they were on one of these machines, and it's like, and the kids were arguing over how you get on the machine, because you have to kind of lean on it, put your foot back and stuff like that. And there was instructions on it. You can just read the instructions and just do it yourself, or not do it yourself, but self-serve using their equipment. Now, do it yourself is different, because there you're using your own resources, not the provider's resources. So that would be something like just do it at home, which you can do. During the pandemic, a lot of people had to do this. I had to do this, is that couldn't go to the fitness center because of social distance requirements, things like that. So, and the fitness center was closed down during most of the pandemic. My fitness center was, but the one that we have here in the Smithfield house, there's periods of time where you couldn't really go there because of pandemic. So it's like, oh, what can I do at home? What can I lift at home? What kind of exercise can I do there? I have a stairway. I could just run up and down the stairs if I wanted to or something. Or I actually have a treadmill that I don't use very much, but this often happens. Does that make sense? Okay, again, over here is provider control. Over here it's customer control. In between, it's interactive with increasing customer involvement. Third example that I'll give here, this will be the last of the series, is planning medical treatment. So as you know, I probably mentioned this, my toe we talked about earlier. I went in for an eye allergy recently. So, my toe, I want a medical treatment for a toe. And somebody has to know how to treat the kind of problem I have with my toe. So standardized production would be somebody writing a book on it. Well, it happens, people write books on here's how to fix toes that have ingrown toenail problems or cancer or whatever it is. You can have customized production. You can have a physician look at your data and from that prescribe a treatment. So in the case of my physician, my podiatrist, is the podiatrist said, oh, you need to take an antibiotic. So he prescribed an antibiotic for that, and then I'll take that. So he developed a treatment plan based on his expert judgment. We could have synchronous co-production. I have this happen sometimes where I'll sit there with the physician. In fact, my primary care physician is very much like this. He'll always say, well, I say, here's my problem. He'll say, well, here's some options. One, do nothing and just wait till you die. Okay, that's an option. He doesn't say wait till you die, but it's like do nothing. He says another option is, you go do physical therapy. It's like, oh, I hate physical therapy because you got to get parking if you're going to do physical therapy, and I hate trying to find parking. Another option is we can give you some medicines, but there may be side effects. See, that's kind of the synchronous co-production. We kind of talk about it and, negotiate on things like that. Self-service production, one common solution today is just to grab the smartphone or whatever and look up WebMD and say, what do you do for an ingrown toenail? And there's a YouTube video on it, believe it or not, I'm sure there is. And it's like, yeah, okay, I could do that. Use some other technology or other resource, or related to that, just do it yourself. I have scissors at my house. I should be able to operate on this thing myself, I have medical implements that I could potentially use. And so maybe a DIY option. So again, over here in writing this book, tremendous provider control. Over here, the customer's in charge. And in between, they're interactive, but with increasing customer involvement. Does that make sense? Sure.
We have to recognize a wonderful tell about the hand with the telephone just overlapping the other picture. That's it. I just wanted to recognize that.
The symbolism here, you mean the fact that it's over?
I mean, like you're overlapping the pictures, but you cut the finger.
Oh, don't give me credit for any genius. So. Transparent background, so. Thank you though. I'm trying to make nice slides. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to turn this into a framework. So are you comfortable with this idea of the spectrum of this kind of the continuation of this thing from, customer involvement differences? Okay. So what we're going to do now, this is the one, Jared, that I'd like you to be impressed about. Is I take this list here and I turn it into this. There's actually a feature of PowerPoint that's called Morph Transition that'll let you do this. So anyway, so we take it, we're going to make a triangle out of it. And here's why, okay? Here's what the triangle shows us, is that there's a relationship between these that this shape will help us understand. On this side here, these are the areas of provider control. On this side here, we have the areas of customer control. At the top, the pinnacle of this, we have shared control, right? Does that make sense? Okay, now down here at the bottom, this is decoupled production. It's decoupled, and we talked about this in prior class sessions. It's decoupled in the sense that provider and customer are kind of operating independently of the other. So over here, for example, the producer is producing without a customer being currently present or engaged, such as making a car. Or we have over here, the customer producing without the provider, that's washing a car. You can wash a car without a provider. I have a Toyota. I can wash the car all I want. I do not need Toyota. I don't even need the soap manufacturers. I already have soap. I don't even need the sponge manufacturer. I already have that. So we're decoupled. Does that make sense? So that's something that I can do somewhat independently from the provider after I have the resources. Okay. One of the keys to this is the vertical here represents increasing service interaction. Here we have the lowest interaction between the provider and the customer. Here we have increasing interaction and the highest interaction at the top. All right, so we're going to talk about some shifts. So this builds on last class session. So last class, we talked primarily about servantization. The Vandermeer and Rada article, remember that? So this will then, we're going to expand on that through the model. So servantization, which Vandermeer and Rada, really, they were the ones that really came up with this whole concept of servantization back in 1988. They shift to increased interaction. So in the framework here, we think of it as this vertical ascent to more interaction here. It's motivated by overcoming commoditization. Have we talked about commoditization today? Yeah, we talked about my antibiotic, right? That's why I actually thought that was a very valuable way to start class today, is thinking about things such as my antibiotic that I can buy for $65 from CVS or for $6 from Amazon, and it's the exact same chemical compound. It's a commodity. And see, what happens is when things become a commodity, all of a sudden it's hard to compete. And that's why, in fact, we have fewer producers, is that when things can compete, you know, back in the day when you have lots of people making, you know, I don't know what it could be, computers or, I don't know. What's an example of something that's kind of commoditized? I'll show you a few examples in a few minutes, but what happens is the low-cost producers are the only ones that survive. As if something's a commodity, it's really hard to differentiate, as we talked about earlier. So that becomes a big motivation. So I want you to remember that, is this idea that, I mean, as an example, it would be a great exam question. What is the primary motivator of servantization, commoditization, huh? Okay, let me give you a few examples to illustrate this. Pearson. So Pearson Education makes textbooks, at least they did in the day. That was their, you know, primary business in Pearson Higher Education. They would produce textbooks, and how much would they sell them for? Hundreds of dollars. I mean, an average textbook 10 years ago was probably $200 to $300. And the problem is that textbooks on, you know, supply chain management or textbooks on marketing or textbooks on whatever, everybody, all the publishers made these things. And it was kind of harder to differentiate. They all kind of taught the same things. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but, you know, you could have different books from different publishers. They have kind of similar chapters and things like that. And they didn't differentiate. So think about Texas science, for example. Now, one question I have is, why in the heck does Texas have a science? You know, do we have Utah science? I mean, there's biology, there's chemistry, there's physics, and there's Texas. Okay. Anyway, there's a point where everybody's selling Texas science books, and the price goes down. So that was your point, Jessica, is that if you want to learn about Texas or about physics, how much do you have to pay to access educational materials about physics on YouTube? Zero. See, they're publicly available. In fact, you can go to Wikipedia and learn about physics for free. See, isn't that kind of weird to think about? It's because that information has become a commodity. It's just common. Everybody knows it. So how does Pearson respond? Well, they shift to services. Now, instead of just selling textbooks and pushing them down the supply chain, now they engage people with MyOM Lab or the other products they have, which are like a learning platform that you then sign up for, you pay a subscription fee for. So they're servitized because of that commoditization problem. Does that make sense? Questions? All right, here's another example, IBM. So in the day, 30 years ago, IBM was really kind of big into making computer hardware. I don't know if it's 30, maybe more than that, but 82 to 95, IBM made personal computers and stuff, So IBM was really big into computers. I mean, they still are into computers, but in different ways, as we will see. And again, the problem is they're making these little personal computers, and then all of a sudden, all the competitors are making them at half the price. And they're basically the same thing, meaning, I mean, some of you, I can't see, we have a few Apple computers perhaps here. You're snobs, Apple people. But, you're always better than the rest of us. But the rest of us, see, don't you think, Isaac, that your computer is better than any PC?
It depends on what you're using it for.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's a fair answer. It does depend on what you're using it for, but anyway, so admittedly, Apples are kind of differentiated, and they can actually charge more for that. But for the PCs, aren't they all kind of the same? Acer, Lenovo, HP, they're all kind of the same. You kind of look at the features, what they have, but if they have the same features, the price is pretty much the lowest price you can get. So commodities. So what IBM did to respond to this commoditization of computer hardware and software is they moved into services in a big way, into consulting and infrastructure services, things like that. We'll come back to that idea. General Motors, they make cars, and they said, cars, believe it or not, become commodities at some point. There's a point where price pressure, right now we're having a little bit of a shortage because of some supply issues, but often they become kind of commodities where they're all having similar features. It's hard to differentiate price pressure. So GM actually tried to get into things like car sharing with the Maven car sharing service, which wound up being a disaster. It wound up not working. They've also got into things like OnStar and other services that are subscription models and things. But again, it's a manufacturer trying to get into some interactive service types of offerings. Walmart, this is an interesting example. So Walmart, big into products. Now they're trying to get bigger into services. Okay, delivery and so forth. We'll come back to that example. Finally, Nike. So Nike, what do they make? Yeah, shoes and a lot of stuff, but a lot of them are shoes. Yeah, sportwear, but even shoes become commodities. I mean, who else makes shoes like sport shoes besides Nike? Adidas, Under Armour, Skechers, is that a company? Skechers,
New Balance.
New Balance. See, I don't wear shoes, and so I'm not really into that. Anyway, New Balance. See, they kind of become a commodity where it's kind of hard to differentiate here. So it puts pressure on Nike. So one of the things that Nike's done is got into services like Burn with Kirsty Goodsoe, where you sign up for something. You might even have a device that tracks your performance and feeds it up to the cloud somewhere. And Kirsty looks at it and says, hey, you're running too slow, run faster or something like that. I don't know what Kirsty does, but again, kind of services. Does that make sense? So again, overcoming commoditization. Okay, now we have conversely, that's kind of moving up the pyramid here. Conversely, moving down the pyramid, we have deservitization. Now, Vandermeer and Rada didn't talk about deservitization, but they kind of gave some hints at it. But this is really, in fact, deservitization, it has been documented a few times in the literature, but it's really a term that I'm kind of advocating these days, which is deservitization is kind of the opposite of servitization. In fact, it's actually even more prominent than servitization, believe it or not. I mean, significantly more prominent. It means that we're shifting away from interaction. We're abandoning interactions in co-production. We're backing off on our co-production. It's accomplished through providing customer-facing tools. We shift from in-person to online. So we give, instead of serving the customer, we give the customer tools so that the customer can serve herself or himself. So let me give some examples of deservitization. What is this? Yeah, it's a bank. A teller. Anybody know what a teller is? Has anybody talked to a teller in the last 2 years? Oh, in the last year. Seriously, you talk to tellers? You're awesome. Okay. I'm surprised it is that many of you. Because you can actually go for years with never talking to a teller. You do everything kind of electronically, right? Now, actually, this is admittedly kind of the old model of banking here. One of the reasons you can tell it is, what is this thing here? What is it though? It's part of a computer. Actually, this will be bonus points, okay? David, if somebody gets this, we'll give this the bonus points here for today's class. Okay, what do you think, Jared?
Monitor?
You got to be more precise than that. It is kind of a monitor, but what is it called? What kind of monitor is it? Display monitor. Last class, I had one student get it out of 31
You want
students.
the brand?
No, what kind of monitor? What type of technology is it? No? Oh, come on, not, okay.
Personal computer.
Okay, what did you say? Did you say?
PC, same thing.
Okay, oh man, that's close, but not quite. Jessica?
I'll fess up. I was in when you showed this to the seniors in supply chain. So isn't it something with lasers?
Sort of, yes. Electronic gun, okay. All right, I will tell you then. I'm sorry, I can't give that. We'll figure out something else to do bonus points today for, but it's actually called a CRT. Does that ring a bell at all? Cathode ray tube. But since you already heard it in the class, I don't know if I can give you a bonus point. So it's a cathode ray tube is what it is. Isn't that interesting to think about? A cathode. Oh yeah, I gave this presentation.
To the seniors.
Seniors.
Oh, who are the seniors here? I'm sorry, is this completely boring?
No.
It's a good resource.
I like the first time I liked
It see, I guest speak in different classes. In the junior class, I did the Malawi's case, right? Any juniors here? I did Malawi's. I didn't do, although I probably would have preferred to do this with the senior. I completely forgot I did that. Okay, bear with me
I
then.
didn't notice the finger thing with the cell phone last.
Okay, that's a cathode ray tube. So they actually has a little thing that shoots out electrons to a screen. And when it hits the screen, it makes a pattern. And okay, what is this? Anybody know what this is? You know what that is? Okay, does anybody here have any cash? Okay, not much though. See,
I'll trade it for you.
oh yeah, no, it might be valuable at some point, you know? We do it all like this these days, right? See, that's deservitization. What is that? PowerPoint just decided to take a hiatus there. Hold on. That was weird. This is an example of Microsoft being too involved in. Okay, hold on. Get to the right one here. So that we. There we go. That's weird. All right, so here's how we really do banking today, right? Yeah, it's kind of on the phone. It's kind of, remote banking that we do. In fact, it's kind of cool, this idea. If you want to deposit a check, you take a picture of the check. Any of you ever do that? When my wife first said that, I thought she was joking. She said, I had a check interestingly, from a publisher, and it's like, I said, I'll take this down to the bank on my way to work. She knows that I forget. She says, can I just deposit it? And I say, well, no, I'm going to work. I'll just stop on my way to or from work and deposit it. She'll say, no, I can just deposit now. I'll take a picture of it. I thought, no, come on, don't joke with me here. And she did it and it worked. I thought, that's amazing. So I was like, I'm around taking pictures of checks now and show up on my account. Okay, restaurants. Remember this thing? Remember this? The waiter. Hi, welcome to the restaurant. What would you like today? We have this is our specials, That's not how we do it today. You still can get some of that, but it's becoming more and more rare. More we get this kind of thing, right? Where you just go up and push the buttons or this kind of thing. That's how you order today. Now, where is Fred, the waiter? Where is he today? He's a software engineer. Yeah, I got a tech job. He's a software engineer writing Fred the kiosk. You go up and says, hi, I'm Fred here. Push your button here and we'll put your order here. So if any of you use this thing over the Wilkinson Center, yeah, it's kind of cool. All right, or this kind of thing here, the robot brings it around and delivers you your food. Okay, retail, again, what's this called? Yeah, the cashier. Oh, what a wonderful, friendly person there, versus this kind of thing, which is a robot. Yeah, you just go and interact with the kiosk there and, do it yourself. And, Do any of you remember, it probably may have been before your time, do you remember President Uchtdorf gave a talk about the person that was trying to buy stamps at the post office, waiting in line, and somebody came up to the woman and said, it was like an elderly woman, said, hey, you know, you don't have to wait in line here. You can go over to that kiosk over there and buy your stamps immediately and be done. And she said, well, that machine will not ask me about my arthritis. That was actually in the talk. Anybody remember that? It was like probably 8 years ago or something like that, 10 years ago. But as that idea, though, is we're giving up that interpersonal interaction, replacing it with technology. Stockbrokers, it used to be, you know, 30 years ago or more, you had stockbrokers that would sit down with you and interact and talk about stock transactions. They charge high fees. I can remember when I was growing up, it was like $300 to do a stock transaction. Can you believe that? Now you go do it online and you pay $0. That's another example, Jessica, this idea that stock transactions are pretty much free at this point because they became commodities. It's like you can trade with, you know, what are the companies? E-Trade, Robinhood, or whatever. I trade with Fidelity, and it's like free. I never pay anything for any transactions. So it became a commodity. That's deservitization. Travel agents. You used to sit down and meet with the travel agents. They'd write up a ticket for you. They would write it in triplicate on a piece of paper there and for your airline flights. Now you just do it all online. Okay. Even airlines, you used to go to the counter. They would print your boarding passes and things like that. These days, it's all check-in. You get their own tags for your bags. You put them on the bag and so forth. You do it all yourself. So this is all deservitization. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the journey. So companies actually go through a progression. So what I want to do for this little piece is, so what we're going to do is we'll go through this and then we'll have our quiz. So the journey is thinking about how companies evolve over time and how some of these competitive and environmental pressures force companies to redefine their production positioning. So the first example I want to look at is Walmart. We talked about this a few class sessions ago about how Walmart's kind of been in transformation here. So who here has ever shopped at Walmart? Okay, oh, everybody has. So how does Walmart work? Can somebody explain it to me? Tiffany, you've been to Walmart. How does Walmart work?
So when you walk in, you just, normally I have my list of things that I need to buy, and then I just go through my list and then walk around and grab the things that I need.
Okay, all right, so you have a list. Okay, I appreciate that, Tiffany. Tiffany, what's your major?
Supply chain.
Yeah, you missed like one of the big steps to this.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
Tiffany, I would have expected this of you. Okay. How does Walmart work? Procurement, distribution and inventory, right? Okay. So I'm sorry. I gave you kind of a poorly defined question there. But so in the back, Walmart is procuring things. It's standardized. They're procuring, look at this. Does this look standardized to you? Yeah. They procure the inventory. It's all just standardized. They do it when they want, how they want, quantities they want, and so forth. And then, well, actually, there's another step, Tiffany, that you forgot, I think, is finding parking, right? So is that a big deal at Walmart sometimes? Yeah, it can be kind of hard to find parking. So you go find parking, and then that's where we got to what you described is you have your list. Oh, no, I forgot. There's the greeter. Do they still have greeters at Walmart? Okay, so I like the greeters. It's kind of like, it makes you feel like, okay, all is well in the world because the greeter's happy, If the greeter's not happy, there's probably something bad going on. So the greeter, you meet the greeter, it's this great experience. Then you have your list and then you go find items that you're looking for. And sometimes you might not be able to find something. What do you do if you can't find something, Tiffany? Okay, you ask somebody, hey, do you still have this item here? Where would I find that? And they're actually pretty good about telling you where to find things. Then you either check out or you might self-check out. How many of you are more likely to check out with a cashier? How many are more likely to check out self-checkout? Are you serious?
Interaction.
Wow, okay. We have become way too decoupled as a society here, We need, a part of the problem is you probably don't have arthritis. You get to my age, you want to talk to somebody, they'll say, hey, how's your arthritis going here? It's like, no, how's your toe doing? See, I need that a little bit more. Please, Tim.
So question with your visual. So like you put parking and DIY.
Yes.
Couldn't it be, was it like, wouldn't that be like, they provide the parking lot?
Yes, they do. So it could have been kind of self-serve parking versus them doing it for you. Could parking be over here? Customized production?
Valet.
That's valet parking, right? Wouldn't that be great to go to Walmart and have valet parking? Hey, welcome to Walmart. You have your keys here. We'll park your car for you. Someday. The reason I did not put this under self-serve production, I could have put it over here under self-serve production, but the reason I didn't is because I don't have space for the picture. Because I put these big pictures here, I need a bigger slide here. So you're right. It could have got either. I did this mostly out of convenience here for the slide. Does that make sense? What do you ask? And that's a question in your PCN diagrams as well, is that, you know, sometimes there's things that can be subtle differences there. So, all right. Finally, you leave, and I put it over here because I had space here for this picture, but you leave, you find your car, you unload the car, and hopefully don't get hit by somebody else coming into the parking lot, and you're done with that part of the process. Okay, now in 2020, in the pandemic, Walmart really ramped up their new thing, which was socially distanced Walmart. And here's how socially distanced Walmart worked, is you had the Walmart app on your phone. You would pick the stuff that you want, you select it there. They would pick it for you. We'll shop, you pick up free. So then you go park your car in the parking lot, which again, I could have put that over here, but I didn't have much space. But you park your car in one of these pickup slots like this, and then they come and put it in your car synchronous. They, you know, you have to open it for them. They're not going to break into your car or something like that. And so they put it in your car and then you go home. Okay, so that's kind of Walmart 2020. And then now we have Walmart Plus, which we talked about a couple class sessions ago, right? So Walmart Plus is a little bit different because now you still have an app, but you subscribe to the app, you know, $13 a month or $98 a year, and you select the items on your app. They pick them, but now it's stay home. We'll bag and deliver. See, it's a little bit different, right? So now you don't have to drive to Walmart and parking with their little pickup places. Now it shows up on your front steps, and the neighborhood dog comes and digs through it before you get home. But that doesn't matter because you can also give them your garage code and they will put it in your garage. But what if you don't have a garage? Then you give them your door code and they will actually put it in your refrigerator. Part of this new process. How cool is that? So now you are, think about this. Think about this. Under the old model that I showed you before, the stocking point was the shelves of a Walmart. Under the new model, the stocking point is the shelves of your refrigerator. It's vendor managed inventory. Have you studied that in some class? Your purchasing class or logistics class? Yeah. It's vendor managed inventory. What I would like is to say, I want this much pepperoni. If I get down to less than 50 slices of pepperoni, I want you to just make a new bag there. And I show up from work and it's like, hey, there's a new bag of pepperoni here. Or actually milk, we watch it till it gets down to like the last quarter of the gallon. It's like, okay, we've got to remember to get milk. No, let Walmart get the milk. Just let them come and check my fridge every third day. And if they see milk getting too low, they just put another thing of milk in. See, that's where this could go. Okay, so, but here's the interesting thing. If we look at Walmart Plus, again, we've kind of talked about this a little bit. Is it really plus or is it minus? One thing is there's no parking lot. See, the parking lot is the street in front of my house now, where the delivery person goes. We also, there's no synchronous co-production. If you use Walmart Plus, you potentially could go for years with never talking to anybody at Walmart. No interactions. Yeah, Jared?
When we talk about synchronous for the PCN, synchronous wasn't like using the tools for the company, so that's synchronous, even though it's not a direct interaction.
Yes.
How was that? They're using their app.
Well, that's not synchronous. So using the app is not synchronous because when I place an order, I'm not interacting with any person at that moment. It's going into a queue somewhere in the cloud, waiting for them to process that. So that's asynchronous, meaning I place an order, not somebody filling that immediately. Versus the other picture where I showed, if I go ask somebody a question, I get an immediate response, that's synchronous. Whereas this, it could be potentially 2 whole hours later. You know, that's kind of what they're aiming for here is 2-hour delivery to kind of beat Walmart's 2-day delivery or Amazon's 2-day delivery. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Good question. All right. The other interesting thing is the stores become warehouses. They're no longer retail locations, they're more distribution locations. Do they even need stores in the future? Please, Jared.
I've actually thought of that because some places, not just Walmart, but other stores that are doing this stuff where it's all pickup, it seems like the inside of their stores are not becoming as fancy or as like showy as they used to be.
Yeah.
Like they will still leave things out on pallets or for much long, like usually you would only see that if you went to Walmart at night. I feel like you'd see the pallets and then the next day they'd all be like on shelves. So I just thought that was like.
So go take a picture of Walmart now. And then 5 years from now, when you walk into Walmart and it's just like a warehouse with a bunch of pallets and things like that, say, you could tell your kids that. You can say, hey, can you remember when, you probably don't know this, but back in the day, we used to actually have stores with, you know, nice aisles where things were placed in aesthetic, you know, position and stuff like that. That could go away. And now it all becomes a big picking center, something like that. So, all right. Is this Walmart's future? That was kind of what we talked about a few class sessions ago is, what does this mean? How does this change the company? Stores are not ideally suited for click and pick. So that's kind of the idea is that maybe the stores need to transform themselves to become more efficient than they are currently. Okay, so looking at the model, so let's think about this. We have Walmart Plus. So the original, so there's the back-end Walmart, front-end customer actions. The traditional Walmart was kind of this, although it was really standardized self-serve. It was kind of this and maybe kind of this as well. And then, so, you know, standardized inventory, and then, you know, customers would pick themselves self-serve or kind of DIY, probably more self-serve. And then we have servantization. The new Walmart is customized production, self-serve production, where you select the item using the app, and then they pick the item and deliver it to your home. They're doing this customized for you. Now, there were all these synchronous things, the greeters, the helpers in the store, the cashiers. Those things are becoming kind of minimized with Walmart Plus. Do you see that? You don't need a greeter for Walmart Plus. The app is the greeter. So, similarly, other stores like Nordstrom, you know, with a great interaction and, you know, working with the customers, they deservitize the Nordstrom rack where you just kind of do it yourself. So that's a big trend, is this deservitization. All right, last example, we're really short on time. I'm going to skip the observations for now. We'll talk about them in subsequent class periods. Well, actually, let me just mention this. Standardized production are often subject to commoditization. We already said that. Synchronous co-production is costly. And then customized production and self-serve production can strike a balance. So we'll talk more about this in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about value next week. And then we talk about chapter 5. We'll talk about these ideas in more detail. So last example, IBM. I'm going to take you through this kind of quickly to illustrate, give an illustration here, because there's a quiz question on this item here. So in fact, actually, let me have you pass out, David, the quiz form so that everybody can be ready to take the quiz. So IBM used to be in hardware and software, and now in recent years have moved into service. IBM has 5 divisions. One of those is this division that makes computers, which is standardized. Another division is services, technology services, which is kind of customized production. They have their business services consulting. Oops, they have their cloud and cognitive, which is like you can use space on the cloud, like Amazon Web Services and other things like that. That is self-service. And they have financial, which is DIY, where customers use the financial resources to meet their needs, their IT needs. In terms of revenue, the systems division is going down in revenue over 2018 to 2020. Technology services is going down. Business services is kind of going down a little bit. Cloud and cognitive is going up. Global financing has been down, and it's kind of gone down because of the pandemic and perhaps other things. In the breakdown of their financial performance, the revenue, the systems divisions provides 10% of the revenue, but only 5% of their profits. The technology services provides 35%, the biggest part of the company, but only 1% of the profit. The consulting provides 22% of the revenue and 15% of the profit. Where's the profit coming from? It's coming from the cloud, 32%, but 70% of the profits. And finally, the financing, which is 2% versus 8% of the profits. So what IBM realized was, so here's what happened with IBM. Where should they be? So let me just draw you the diagram. There's the thing about Kindle. So IBM just this past year split into two companies. They had Kyndryl, which was kind of the outsourcing division, and IBM itself, which is more the cloud division, okay? So it's kind of the difference between these two. Kind of glossing over this a little bit. But what we see is that IBM, where they want to be, they started in standardized, they moved to customize because these became a commodity. They moved to consulting, synchronous co-production because of commoditization. But that became hard to do profitable. So then they shifted down to self-service, which is the cloud, and then they shifted down to DIY. They have both deservitized and deservitized, trying to find the optimal, and then ultimately split the company. Does that make sense? All right, let's do our quiz. So this is quiz number B. The reason I call it quiz B is because it is a bonus quiz. So if you do this quiz today, you can use it as a substitute for any quiz that you miss during the course.